Warsaw Convention, or also known as the Convention for the Unification of Certain Rules Relating for International Carriage by Air, was formally signed on October 12, 1929. This convention resulted into the first uniform international effort to implement laws in connection to the international air carriage and with respect to the carrier's liability. The purpose of Warsaw Convention is to attain uniformity of rules controlling power over increasing growth of air transportation. After 70 years, it was replaced with the Montreal Convention 1999. And in this convention, the liability is no longer limited and strict, and air travel is more convenient and safer. For today's discussion, we will tackle about Articles 49 to 57 of the Warsaw Convention.
The Article 49, which is the mandatory application, is the first article under the Chapter 6 of the Warsaw Convention. This provision reiterates that any clause or special agreement within the contract of carriage that aims to violate the rules established by the Warsaw Convention will be considered null and void. It specifically mentions two ways in which the parties may attempt to infringe the Convention's rules by choosing a different applicable law or by altering the rules related to jurisdiction. In essence, Article 49 ensures that the rules and regulations outlined in the Warsaw Convention, which governs international air travel, cannot be overridden or disregarded by any clauses or agreements made within the contract of carriage. Article 50 is all about insurance. State parties refers to the countries that are party to the Warsaw Convention. According to Article 50, these state parties have the obligation to mandate carriers to have sufficient insurance coverage that covers their liability as outlined in the Warsaw Convention. The liability being referred to is likely the carrier's liability for any damages, injuries, or losses that occur during the transportation process. Additionally, the state party in which the carrier operates has the authority to request the carrier to provide evidence that it has adequate insurance coverage to meet its liability obligations under the Warsaw Convention. In summary, Article 50 emphasizes that carriers should maintain appropriate insurance coverage to address their liability under the Warsaw Convention, and the state party where the carrier operates has the right to verify this coverage by requesting evidence from the carrier.
Article 51. Carriage performed in extraordinary circumstances. The provisions of Article 55, 7, and 8 relating to the documentation of carriage shall not apply in the case of carriage performed in extraordinary circumstances outside the normal scope of a carrier's business. In situations where a carrier is engaged in exceptional activities beyond their usual operations, certain provisions regarding documentation of carriage do not apply. Specifically, Articles 55, 7, and 8, which deal with these documentation requirements, are exempted in such extraordinary circumstances, such as providing transportation services in response to a natural disaster. They may be involved in emergency relief efforts, for example, transporting essential supplies, medical equipment, or personnel to the affected areas. Operating in war or conflict zones may be involved in transporting military personnel, equipment, or humanitarian aid. These operations often require special security measures and may be exempt from certain documentation requirements due to the unique circumstances. Take note that regulations may vary depending on the industry, country, and applicable laws.
Article 52, entitled Definition of Days, refers to the expression days, which are the rules and laws implemented to be in action on an everyday basis for the whole year, or what we call the calendar days, and not just on working days or business days from Monday to Friday.
Chapter 7, Article 53 is about signature, ratification, and entry into force. The article has been divided into 8 paragraphs wherein the first passage outlines the timeline and process of signing during the convention. Initially, it was opened for signage by states participating in the International Conference on Air Law in Montreal from May 10 to 28, 1999. Afterward, all states were allowed to sign in the ICAO headquarters in Montreal until it came into effect. The second passage introduces the Regional Economic Integration Organizations. So these are organizations formed by sovereign states with adequate competency in matters covered by the convention and are eligible to sign, ratify, accept, approve, or accede to the convention. So all provisions except for some articles including numbers 23, 33, 46, and others apply to Regional Economic Integration Organization. The following paragraph elaborates on the process of ratification, wherein they indicate that the convention requires ratification by states and regional economic integration organizations that have signed it. But those that did not initially sign the convention may still accept, approve, or accede to it at any time. The instruments or the formal documents of ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession are then to be deposited with the International Civil Aviation Organization acting as the depository. Finally, entry into force was elaborated in the following paragraphs. This part explains the timeline for the convention to take effect, indicating that it takes 60 days after the 30th instrument is deposited between the states before the convention enters into force. Instruments deposited by the Regional Economic Integration Organizations do not count regarding this requirement. The depository will be responsible for promptly notifying all signatories and state parties about important events, including signatures, deposits of instruments, entry into force, revisions of liability limits, and any denunciation under Article 54.
Article 54, entitled Denunciation, pertains to any right of any state to report any unrighteous or evil act under the Warsaw Convention. This is through a written document to be submitted in the storage of information or reports, or what we call the depository. The report will take effect after 180 days, starting from the date the depository received the complaint.
Article 56. Relationship with other Warsaw Convention instruments. To summarize the content of the said article, this convention is going to be treated as more important than any rules that govern international air travel between countries that are parties to the convention. This applies even if those countries are also bound by other agreements such as the Warsaw Convention, the Health Protocol, the Guadalajara Convention, the Guatemala City Protocol, or the Montreal Protocol. Similarly, within the territory of a single country that is a party to this convention, the rules outlined in this convention will prevail if the country is a party to any of the previously mentioned agreements.
Under the 7th chapter of the Warsaw Convention, final clauses, specifically Article 56, states with more than one system of law, there are 3 points that are discussed. First is if a state has 2 or more territorial units in which different systems of law are applicable in relation to matters dealt with in this convention, it may at the time of signature, ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession declare that this convention shall extend to its territorial units or only to one or more of them, and modify this declaration by submitting another declaration at any time. The second one is any such declaration shall be notified to the depository and shall state expressly the territorial units to which the convention applies. The third one is, in relation to a state party which has made such a declaration, references in Article 23 to national currency shall be construed as referring to the currency of the relevant territorial unit of the state, and the reference in Article 28 to national law shall be construed as referring to the law of the relevant territorial unit of that state. In other words, this article states that if a state has two or more territorial units in which different systems of law are applicable in relation to matters dealt within this convention, then, in this case, convention shall extend to all its territorial units or only to one or more of them, and may modify this declaration by submitting another declaration at any time. The last article in this chapter and in the Warsaw Convention is Article 57, entitled Reservations. No reservation may be made to this convention except that a state party may at any time declare by a notification addressed to the depository that this convention shall not apply to international carriage by air performed and operated directly by the state party for non-commercial purposes in respect to its functions and duties as a sovereign state, and or the carriage of persons, cargo, and baggage for its military authorities on aircraft registered in or leased by the state party, the whole capacity of which has been reserved by or on behalf of such authorities. In other words, Article 57 states that no reservation is given under the convention, but if the state declares that the convention does not apply to international carriage or the carriage of persons, cargo, and passengers, then they get reservations.
To summarize, Chapter 6 of the Warsaw Convention, referred to as the Other Provisions, comprises several articles. These include Article 49, which deals with a mandatory application, Article 50, which addresses insurance, Article 51 pertaining to carriage performed in extraordinary circumstances, and Article 52, which provides the definition of days. Moving on to the final chapter, Chapter 7, known as Final Clauses, it encompasses Article 53 on signature, ratification, and entry into force, Article 54 concerning denunciation, Article 55 on the relationship with other Warsaw Convention instruments, Article 56 regarding states with more than one system of law, and finally, Article 57 on reservations.